Xbox's Phil Spencer says he's concerned that Google, Amazon, and Meta could negatively disrupt the gaming industry. And take it from Phil, the dude knows a thing or two about disrupting the gaming industry. I mean, he literally just spent $70 billion turning the entire video game world on its head, and anyway, let's talk about it.
Are you listening?
Hey, welcome back to the Nerf Report. My name is Bryant, and on today's show, we need to talk about this interview with Phil Spencer and the Washington Post, in which they discussed Xbox's massive acquisition of Activision Blizzard last week for nearly $70 billion. And while this is a fantastic interview, and I highly recommend that you read it for yourself, there was one comment that stood out above the others. A comment in which Phil Spencer gave his thoughts on the video game space that is rapidly expanding with new platforms and new competitors. According to the Wall Street Journal, Spencer said he's concerned about tech companies unfamiliar with the gaming industry barging into the space, as opposed to the current experienced competition against Nintendo and Sony. They have a long history in video games. Nintendo's not going to do anything that damages gaming in the long run because that's the business they're in. Sony is the same way, and I trust them. And Valve's the same way. When we look at other big tech competitors for Microsoft, Google has search and Chrome, Amazon has shopping, Facebook has social, all these large-scale consumer businesses. The discussions we've had internally where those things are important to those tech companies for how many consumers they reach, gaming can be that for us. And I wanted to dive into that statement from Phil on today's show because it raises a very valid question. I mean, who is really allowed to disrupt the gaming industry? Because paint it however you want, Xbox's recent push with things like Game Pass, cloud gaming, and massive acquisitions are greatly disrupting the gaming industry. Xbox has changed the landscape of console gaming with Game Pass, so much to the point that PlayStation will be announcing an updated version to PlayStation Now to compete with Game Pass in the upcoming months. Xbox Cloud Gaming has disrupted console gaming, as for the first time, Xbox titles can now be played on virtually any screen that you own. And Xbox is going even further by adding a TV app that will allow you to play video games on your television with no consoles. And Xbox's recent acquisitions of companies like ZeniMax Bethesda or Activision Blizzard will result in massive third-party games that previously were available on all consoles now being exclusive to the Xbox platform. Disruptions to the video game industry that, depending on where you game, are either seen as a positive or a negative. And I gotta be honest, after hearing Phil Spencer's comments about tech companies unfamiliar with gaming, it kind of feels like they're the pot calling the kettle black a little bit. Because let's not forget that back in 2001, a small tech company from California who had very little business being in the video game console space announced their first console with the Microsoft Xbox, entering into a vertical that at the time was dominated by the likes of Nintendo and Sony, trying to disrupt the industry and get their own piece of the pie. Like, it's almost as Phil Spencer understands the impact that new competitors can have on the gaming industry, and he knows that Sony and Nintendo won't make the moves that Google, Amazon, or Meta would make to make an impact on the gaming industry. And he uses that knowledge to justify things like, in order to stop Google from buying up the entire gaming industry, Xbox needs to do it first. Which admittedly is a very interesting mentality, that if the video game industry is going to be disrupted, it is better for the video game industry that I am the one to disrupt it versus anyone else. And sure, you could definitely make the argument that out of all of those companies, Xbox has gamers' best intentions in mind. But we should also make it very clear that comments like those from Phil Spencer about inexperienced companies damaging the gaming industry, those are not pro-gaming industry comments. Those comments are pro-Xbox. Xbox making Bethesda or Activision games exclusive to Xbox isn't good for the gaming industry. You have tons of PlayStation and Nintendo players who played those games on their platform for years, now not able to access those games. Game Pass, while great for consumers, the true impact of Game Pass on the gaming industry won't be fully realized until much later down the road. Xbox Game Pass is changing the way that developers have gone to market for decades. You could also argue that it has changed the type of games that are being made. Like, I fully expect when we look back on gaming history, we will have a pre-Game Pass era and a post-Game Pass era. And I don't want to be misconstrued here. Change is very much a good thing. I mean, I say that as a guy who games 90% of the time using cloud gaming services and loves new innovative ideas. But where my concern lies is a company who is actively disrupting the gaming industry and paints it as we're the only ones allowed to do it. But maybe I'm reading too much into this. What do you all think about Phil Spencer's comments? What do you think will be the next major disruption to the gaming industry? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Hey, thanks again for checking out our channel. If you like what you saw and you want to see more content just like it, which who wouldn't, hit the subscribe button right there. And while you're down there, hit the like button. Maybe even consider becoming a Nerf Report best friend, just like the people listed down below did. In fact, don't you want to see your name there? I know I do.